Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast in our series Bookstars. We are doing this during this lockdown period and we have a very good author, in one of India's best-selling author, Ravi Subramanian with us, who is known as the Grisham of banking. Ravi, welcome to the show. But let me start, you are in Mumbai, so let me start with the basic question. How is Mumbai and how was your lockdown?
How was the lockdown is a long question to ask. How is the lockdown is the right question to ask. So, yes, lockdown's been a bit stressful because uh, work from home and managing issues is always tough, particularly if you're not used to it. And more than that, I think there is a constant worry in the minds of people about COVID and the impact of COVID. And there seems to be, rightly so, a fair bit of fear in the minds of people at large. And I think that's playing mind games with a lot of people. Uh, Plus, I'm not an indoor person, so for me to stay locked up at home is extremely difficult. And there are consequences. So it's not easy, but I guess it's got to be done.
What did you read in the lockdown?
Oh, I have been doing a lot of things in the lockdown. Yeah, one, I have been reading quite a few books. I read a book called The Silent Patient. I read Rakesh Maria's latest book. I read Ashwin Sanghi's Walk of Vishnu, and I read a few others as well. Um, but more than that, I've also been working on writing, and but I've been reading more than I've been writing. So I must confess that.
We'll come to the writing part later. But I was going through one of your interviews, and one thing that you said this is your statement that ironically, our expectations from fiction are bound by the need for it to be believable, whereas real life suffers from no such illusions. So right now we are living in times where it is very difficult to know what is believable and what is unbelievable, and our life has become stranger than fiction. So,
Absolutely.
so how do you think fiction will be post this pandemic, and if at all there is a post pandemic?
Look, as I've said in the past as well, fiction suffers from no such illusions, right? Truth suffers from no
Yeah.
such illusions. Fiction is bound by the need to be relatable. When you read a fiction, if it's outlandish, you would turn and say, "What the hell?" If somebody had written about coronavirus, okay, you would say, "What the hell?" Right? Who would have thought that whole of India would be locked down for 75 days and still staying at the next 75 days? Uh, you know, you go back and look at all the incidents which have happened in the last few years. Actually, quite a bit of them. Take the most famous Sheena Bora murder mystery. Okay, now somebody passing off a daughter as a sister, and living in society for so many years with nobody even finding out, or people who found out about that keeping quiet about it. Now, if somebody wrote about that in fiction, you would say, come on, how can this happen? But it happened, right? So truth suffers from no such illusions. I think uh, this is something which will stand out in the post-COVID era. A lot of writers particularly will become a lot more creative because they will take a stance saying, look, if this can happen, anything can happen, right? Uh, Around March, middle of March, we never imagined life would come to a standstill.
But how will the thought process of a writer change after this?
COVID or an equivalent virus attack or uh, something like this will become an integral part of stories. It could actually be a way out when you're stuck in a particular plot. So prior to this, nobody would have thought of this as an option to work your way out of difficult plots. Now, well, this is a very convenient option available, and also I think COVID will give rise to a lot of uh, self-improvement, lot of introspection, a lot of live for today, not for tomorrow, a lot of self-help books in that genre, which I think a lot of people will also pick up and read. So it'll actually give rise to life is short, live it to the fullest genre of non-fiction books. You will have a lot of self-help gurus coming up. So you'd actually it'll be a complete interesting spectrum to watch
But
out.
when you say that, if we go through your books, your books have been always mirroring the reality. To an extent that I think you have spoken a lot about it, but now in hindsight, I would like you to speak more. It's about your book and the reality that clashed 2-3 years back when it became when the Nirav Modi Mehul Choksey scandal broke, and much before it happened, you came up with a plot which was similar. Now, what is it? It is an expertise from the banking sector that you had a foresight that such a thing might happen, or it's just an imagination that came true, or it's just like as most of the people are watching Contagion right now, just so was that kind of a story, or it was just you are there in the sector, so there are better insights and you could foresee it?
Well, I would not say it was foresight. I would not say that it was being prescient. I would say that one, it's being realistic. Okay, if you go back and look at the way we authors write our books, we imagine what can be rather than what is, and then we write our stories. Okay. So let's say the Nirav Modi Mehul Choksey example. Okay. This was not a book on Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksey. Okay. In my book, there was a jeweler who was a high society jeweler, who was a jeweler to Bollywood, a designer, and sold those very, very expensive jewelry. And I was writing the story. Typically, when you write stories, naming of characters is also an important part of the story, right? Because the character has to reflect that personality.
Yeah.
So I decided every day on the way back from home, from office to home, I would actually see a large poster, large hoarding at Bandra Reclamation, and that hoarding was a Nirav Modi hoarding. Okay, so every day I would look at it and say, this guy, this is the kind of a guy I want this jeweler in my book to be. And but I couldn't have kept Nirav Modi, so I picked up Nirav from that. Yeah. Then what would the surname be? So Google came to help there, and I figured out that most of the Gujarati jewelers are called Choksis. Okay, so that's how the name Nirav Choksey was born. I haven't said this anywhere else, but I'm telling this on your show. That's how the name Nirav Choksey was born. But the moment Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksey got caught in that particular scam, everybody started saying, oh my God, this is a PNB scam, which Ravi has written about a year back. If Ravi knew, why did the RBI not know? Why did the government not know? Etc., etc., etc. The fact was, Pramod, that this was not a book about the PNB scam. Yeah. This was not a book about any banking scam. Yes. This was a book which was set in the Padmanabha Swami temple in Trivandrum, and that's it. So, but here, people who had not even read the book were forwarding PDFs, forwarding WhatsApp messages, etc., etc. So it automatically kind of became viral. But the truth of Nirav Choksey is what I just told on your show. On a lighter note, rather than you taking a cue from them, it looks like they took a cue from you. It's a very interesting thing that there was this guy who was caught in one of the public sector banks in Bombay a couple of years back, and for a 3 crore credit card fraud. And the confession is given to the cops, which came in the newspapers, was that he was inspired to commit the 3 crore fraud after reading my book, The Bankster. Now, that's one inspiration.
Is that a compliment?
I don't know. What would you say? Would you think that's a compliment? I don't know. But the fact is, that's one inspiration, man. How can people actually get motivated to commit a crime after reading a book? Yeah. I want to talk about the titles of your book, and I don't know whether anybody has asked you this question before, but if I see the recurring theme, it is Banker, Bankster, Bankrupt, Governor, and God, Devil, and Monk. So apart from the bestseller she wrote, so is that deliberate, or it's just a subconscious process? interesting question you asked. See, there were two things which I tried to do when I started off on my writing career. My first book was this book called If God Was a Banker. Now, when I wrote that book, I would have been very happy had it sold 2,000 copies. But it sold a number which far exceeded that number, and it continues to sell even today. And success makes you greedy, and success makes you superstitious. Okay, so when I had God in the title, it did well. So my objective was, as far as possible, I should try and get God in the title. That explains God is a gamer. That explains In the Name of God. And those are the only three books which had God in the title.
And then there is devil.
In
the second book itself, there is devil.
There is devil in pinstripes, yeah. But in the other books, I wanted Devil in Pinstripes. The original name would have been The Imperfect God. Okay.
Oh.
But my publisher somehow didn't agree to it. And at that point in time, I was not in a position to really argue and push my case. And that's the reason why we have Devil in Pinstripes. But in cases where I don't have God in the title, it's probably because I've lost out the title battle with the publisher.
So, if it was left to you, the devil would have been the God.
Yes, it would have been the imperfect God.
and basically, why did a theme like the bestseller she wrote came up with such a success, with the plots that you tried with? Why that kind of a plot?
Two reasons. Okay.
Yeah.
One was in a country like India, thrillers don't sell as much. Okay.
Oh,
I'm not too sure if Ashwin also told you the same thing when he came out.
Yeah.
But, the hot selling things in India are mythology and romance. Okay. Now, why I don't know. Romance possibly because it's a very simple storyline, non-linear storyline. Youngsters pick it up and then they kind of slowly grow in that genre. So I said, look, let me try my hand in something which is slightly different. One. Two, I also firmly believe that an author who boxes himself in one genre is probably not doing justice to his craft. If you're an author who can write good stories, you should be able to tell all kinds of stories. It's not that you tell a banking story which you have worked 20 years in. That should be easy, right? Try and do something which is difficult. Writing a romance may be very easy for a Ravinder Singh or a Durjay Datta, but writing a romance is not easy for me. Yeah. So when I wrote The Bestseller She Wrote, the intent was to start off on a romance novel, but it ended up being a romantic thriller. So it's you couldn't keep me out of the storyline. So it ended up being a thriller, and that was the logic. I just wanted to experiment and try and do something.
But do you seriously believe in this, that thrillers don't sell, or thrillers sell lesser than the romantic or the mythology fiction in India?
Yes, thrillers sell far lesser than romance and mythology, and there's a reason for it.
Same with Bollywood also.
Sorry?
Same with Bollywood also, probably.
Bollywood doesn't make many thrillers because, one, India lacks simple thriller stories. If you want to make a Bollywood thriller, then the storyline has to be very simple. Few characters, simple plot, and does not deviate much from 5-7 acts. Yeah. Whereas if you look at the thriller writers in India, they really pack their stories with a lot of complexity. Okay, be it my story, be it Ashwin's story, take anybody else. Okay, we try to have 2 or 3 parallel lines all converging towards the end, which becomes very difficult to create a film out of it. So a lot of people actually end up looking at those books for web series rather than movie, because the content in a web series can be a lot more. Yeah. But going back to the old question, the initial question of mythology and romance, I think clearly because when you are reading a thriller, you have to be a lot more invested in the thriller. You can't really slip a few pages. You really have to, because anything can happen on a page, which actually impacts the outcome. In a romance novel, you skip a couple of chapters, it's fine, And when youngsters start their reading journey, they tend to stick to a romance or a mythology rather than a thriller. So a thriller reader is a far more evolved reader in this country than anywhere else, and those are fewer than the norm.
But then another question. You always maintain that you like to write fictions based on real life. Uh, why not go beyond that? Why not do fictions which are stranger than our daily routine life or daily routine scans? Why not go beyond that?
Good question. I tried doing that with In the Name of God,
Yeah.
which was like challenging my limits.
Mm.
When I started writing that book, because I was intrigued by the temple. So I did a lot of research on the temple. I studied about the temple. I read the FIR's file. I read the court documents, and then I kind of built a story around it with multiple threads. It's got the Tamil Nadu idol story. It's got a mall robbery in Dubai, etc., etc. So multiple angles there, but the key angle was the Padmanabh Swami temple, which was way away from the real life thrillers that I write based in the world of banking. So for me, stepping out of the comfort zone and looking at a completely different story was, to my mind, a big challenge. And the good thing about it is that book turned out to be one of the best ever. And to that extent, well, I think I should take your point a lot more seriously and experiment a lot more outside my comfort zone.
No, but also probably because of the same assessment that you made earlier. Because in the name of God, there is an angle of mythology. There is a thrill. At the same time, there are multiple plots, which is your style also, getting viewed differently and then coming together as a one single plot. Why that style? Why not stick to one plot and tell the story? Why create different plots and bring them together and then create one great drama?
Okay, there's the secret to that lies in the way I write my stories. When I write my stories, I arrive at a particular premise and say, okay, I'm going to write a story based on this. For example, I wrote God is a Gamer. I was very intrigued by Bitcoin, so I actually started writing that story. When I was very intrigued by Padmanabha Swami temple, I said, fine, let me write a story on this temple. And when I start writing, I like to keep the reader guessing. And I do not plot my stories. Okay. So unlike many of the current authors, I do not plot my story on an Excel worksheet, write down the chapters and say, this chapter will have this. This is the way the story will start. This is the way it will progress. This is the way it will end. No. I start with the first chapter. For example, when I wrote In the Name of God, the first chapter was about a body being found in the temple pond. Now, that chapter actually should have been somewhere right in the center of the story. Yeah. But I brought it up front and then went into a flashback. And then started writing the story. Now, when I do that, there are points in time when you need to cut the story, because if you don't cut the story, then it will start becoming very monotonous or boring. So at that point in time, you cut off story 1, you bring in the story 2. Okay, so the reader suddenly wonders what the hell just happened. I just want to know who was the guy whose body was found in the pond, why was he found, who killed him, etc., etc. And then for next 3 chapters, there's nothing about it, right? So while the reader is thinking about him, he's reading about something else. Yeah. And while he's made peace with the new story, the second string, you cut it off and get to something else, and then eventually the challenge in this becomes, Pramod, how do you actually bring all those stories together and have characters and plot lines which kind of run across 3 stories and converge at the end? Now, that's a problem, and that's what you deal with.
That's the skill.
That's the skill. Probably that's the skill. And, it sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work. For example, when I finished 90% of In the Name of God, I was stuck. I was stuck because at that point in time, all the characters in the book, okay, any one of them could have been the killer. Okay? So, just
don't tell me you had not decided till then who is the killer.
No, I hadn't decided.
you hadn't decided.
So I got completely stuck. So I would sit in my house. My cupboard is a big glass wall. So I keep writing on that and then keep drawing flow charts and see okay, agar isne usko mara hota, that would have happened, then this would have happened, but I have said this. So I draw all that and then I go back and finish my story. Now just imagine a situation where I did not know at 9% of the book who the killer was. What hope in hell do you have that the reader would have any idea of
Any
who the killer
idea?
was? So the, the benefit of writing like this is at no point in time in my book do I know more than what the reader would when he's reading that particular point in a book.
But is that deliberate to an extent that you allow the inspiration to flow the way it is, the way it takes you, or it's just because okay, let's keep the reader guessing as much as I am in the dark right now. So what's the thought process? Let the inspiration come. I'll write as the inspiration comes, or the other thought.
No, I don't romanticize writing.
Yeah.
The way you are romanticizing it to that statement. No, writing is hard work. It's a lot of thought, and you think and get to put down your thoughts on paper. It is not about inspiration kind of flowing, making your pen flow. No, I don't subscribe to that. The thought is actually the second point of yours, which is it keeps the interest alive. It keeps the suspense alive. It keeps the reader thinking. And if I don't know what's in the next page, the reader also won't know what's in the next page. So it's pretty much trying to keep the story and the suspense alive.
I want to ask this question. After probably 2000, beginning of the new century, Chetan Bhagat started writing, you started writing, Ami started writing, Ashwin started writing, and suddenly we had our own stars. We had our own big, popular bestsellers. Before that, it was a very much serious writing, less thrillers, even the stories, if you start reading them, they did not have so much colors, they did not have so much drama. What changed?
Okay, I might get trolled for saying this. Okay, but I think what changed was that Chetan Bhagat made reading Indian novelists acceptable. Okay, and a lot of people in the earlier days, reading was supposed to be for the elite, right? It was like I read only foreign authors, and a lot of Indian authors were people who were NRIs, settled in the US, and probably teaching in some university, etc., etc. But then it gave wings to Indian writing. A lot of Indians believed that they could write. A lot of publishers believed that they could publish Indian authors and start making money. And that's when they started publishing. They published me, they published Chetan Bhagat, they published Amish, Ashwin, Anand Nilkanthan came up, Ravinder Singh and Durjoy came up. So there were a lot of these guys who actually started coming up because the publishers were willing to take a chance on them. They knew that we would not lose. And that's when,
from mythological thrillers to banking thrillers to romantic thrillers to romantic writing.
Correct. So all those things started, coming, taking wings. And then now people figured out that reading Indian novelists is probably easier because they write stories you can relate to. They write stories which are in geographies that you can relate to. You write about Marine Drive, you write about stories in Colaba, you talk about Bandra, you talk about Connaught Place.
How has the readership progressed over these years, over last 2 decades?
I think it's a very interesting question. Well, I must say that overall the industry is a bit disappointed. Okay, because what's happening now is that there are a lot of writers who've come up, and are also getting published. They're either getting published in the traditional way or getting published through the self-publishers, but the market is not keeping pace. And I think the way the book sales have actually gone up is not in line with the way the reading population has gone up. Look, over the last 10 years, number of people reading English has gone up. Number of children who've grown up and come into an age where they read books has gone up. The number of bookstores may have diminished, but the reach of books has gone up. Social media has gone up where people can actually promote their books and be seen. Yet, if you go back and look at it, total book sales have remained stagnant across the industry, or probably has even come down. Okay, and that's a bit of a challenge.
But don't you think that's natural? When a formula starts succeeding, everybody jumps onto the formula, and eventually only those survives who has something to offer, who has something credible to offer, substantive to offer. Don't you think that's perfectly natural?
No, it's a multitude of reasons. One is clearly authors who kind of made their mark before the online era still survive, still do it. Okay. In the online era, getting discovered and getting readers to pick up your book and read becomes that much more difficult, because how do you go and when you go onto an Amazon or a Flipkart, you go and pick up the book that you want. You don't go and surf. In a bookstore, you surf and discover new authors. People have stopped going to bookstores. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason is which is probably more serious, and we need to address that, is the lot of people have moved from paper to screen. So if you travel by Delhi Metro, okay, or travel by Bombay local, you would find a lot of people just staring into their phones and watching Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, because it's easier, right? You don't have to really tax yourself.
Yeah.
You don't really have to put in the effort. You just watch Patal Lok, that's fine.
Yeah.
So that's what is happening today. The change is there. The screen has taken over our reading habits, and
You are saying there is consumption of stories, but the medium has somehow changed.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So maybe writers like us, or anybody who writes long form, who writes long stories, they need to possibly relook and start writing.
But your books have been picked up for adaptations into movies. So what's the progress when it comes to that?
Strangely and interestingly, bestseller she wrote has been picked up for a web series, and that's been signed up now.
Nice.
The production house has signed it up with one of the leading OTT channels. The other three have been three other books, which is In the Name of God, God is a Gamer, and Don't Tell the Governor, have been picked up by a very large production house, Lock, Stock and Barrel. It's not option; it's been sold. So
Yeah. Okay.
now, I for one believe in the concept of if a writer starts getting involved in what's happening to my book once it's sold, then it's only pain. Leads to a lot of heartache, because things don't progress at the same pace in the film world, right?
Yeah.
So the best is take your money and scoot.
Yeah.
Sell your book, make your money, and just go and enjoy yourself. Let them. They have paid money for your books.
Yeah.
They will figure out a way to make it.
Yeah. My last question: the next book.
Actually, it's a very interesting phase in my life, in the sense that I now want to do what I like to do. In the sense that there was a time when I started writing banking thrillers, and at that point in time, once one book does well, you get sucked into it, right? That okay, you have to keep producing more of those. Yes. So that's a difficult part. So I've done that. So I've written 10, 12 books there, so it's fine. Now I want to write children's books. I want to write children's books, and I want to actually bring up the thriller community in this India. So I'm doing two things right now. One is I'm writing 4 India-based detective series for children.
Oh, okay.
So those books should come out, at least 2 of those should come out this year.
Okay.
I am writing. I've started a project with Amazon, with Westland, which is on giving breaks to thriller writers. Okay, so we are picking up thriller writers, promising thriller writers, who we work with, and we bring out short 150 page, very simple thrillers. And the idea is very simple. The idea is a guy who picks up a romance novel at railway station in Bihar, for example, only because he doesn't have to think too much while reading a romance novel, will now at least pick up one of these thrillers, which is a simple story, and read. And if he likes it and gets hooked on, then he will actually slowly start graduating to a lot more complex thrillers.
Yeah.
So we want to bring out about 7-8 thrillers like this in a series called Shorts, which will be 150 page thrillers. The 3 of those thrillers will actually come out this year.
Oh.
So there are two very interesting projects which may not make great commercial sense, but they're a lot of fun to deal with. So doing those 2 projects.
They may make great commercials and they may graduate a lot of readers also.
Oh yes, they are. The objective is that they should actually get readers at a young age hooked on to thrillers when they start.
Yeah.
That's
nice. Very, very nice. Thanks a lot for talking to us, taking your time out, and that too from Mumbai. So
it's a pleasure, Pramod.
Really, really grateful. Thanks a lot, and I am a fan, so I am waiting for everything that you have said, from movies to the OTT to the 3 books. So thanks a lot for talking to us. Pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Pramod. It's a pleasure talking to you.